There we are, Jason Moore joining us live here. Bo Knows Health, where I like to learn new things and know more health. And people like Jason Moore will teach it to me. Thank you for joining us on this conversation. Jason, where in the world are you right now?
Asheville, North Carolina.
Awesome. I'm sure the weather is gorgeous there right now.
It is. That's like, this is just natural lighting right here, you know? But yeah, it is. Grateful to be here. Been here a while, built a life here, built a business here. And it's cool that from anywhere, basically, you can impact a lot of people. And so here we are.
Awesome. Love it. And yeah, we were just talking. We were live right before you here with Andrew Mentor of Fizmodo, similar kind of overlaps. And so it's I might carry over some thoughts I had from that conversation into here. So I'll try to make sure there's context there before just throwing some things out there. But we're talking about your app, Spren, and I'll just show folks kind of what that looks like in here. And the big thing that, you know, having played with it a little bit, the biggest piece is the body fat camera assessment. But I don't want to overly simplify it. I think the goal here, as we just talked about before we went on, is being the Star Trek tricorder, where you can just use the camera and be like, you know, hey, you have cancer. No, don't. We're not there yet. But
Not there yet.
Not there yet. But point being, I'll let you, you know, tell us a little bit about Spren and where's the name come from. I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. Well, if anyone who's listening is a sci-fi or fantasy nerd, then they may have made some guesses already to the name origins. But it's inspired by my favorite author, Brandon Sanderson, who I think is amazing and a philosopher and an amazing author. Long story short, it inspired by that. To us, it means sort of the embodiment of the human experience, and fits our kind of nerdy roots, as well as is a 5-letter.com that is relatively easy to spell. And so it checks a lot of great boxes. And yeah, so basically, feel free to shoot whatever at me, and I can go into all aspects of the platform or just any part of the journey.
Yeah, I mean, the really cool thing is, and I did it this morning, I mentioned also before we went on, I just finished a 10-day trip in New York where some of my favorite foods, not the healthiest things all the time, but, you know, I'm sure my body fat, be curious what it was before. Didn't get to play with it before we went, but all I did was, and talks you through it very clearly, set your phone up. It gives you kind of like, oh, you're at the wrong angle, make sure you set up. It gives you very clear commands, you know, back up and then set your arms up, kind of the airport screen. Although they got, if you follow, I know Kelly Starrett, who I've had on here before, of the Ready State, they talk all the time that most Americans can't hold their arms up overhead. They don't have the shoulder mobility anymore. I don't know if you've seen that. They changed it at the airport where now you have to have your hands down by your side.
Wow.
And so because they just found a lot of Americans just don't have the shoulder mobility to even get those hands up, like you're getting arrested and put your hands up. But anyway, so I don't know if you found, you know, again, I'm sure there's some user bias of people actually doing this, might have enough mobility that they're able to do that. But it doesn't sound like something you've come across in that being the default way to measure your body fat.
Well, no, it's interesting. It's funny you say that. I have some personal experience in a past life of being advised to never lift my arms above my head because it was dangerous. And I was like, I don't know. I'm not an expert. I wasn't an expert back then. I'm barely no more now, but I'm like, this is not good advice. And unless there's a obvious medical condition or injury or something like that. But anyways, we haven't run into that because you actually don't have to break the plane of 90 degrees that much anyways. Like you can kind of raise your arms close to perpendicular to the ground. Don't have to get all the way there. So far, no complaints about that. But yeah, that's maybe something we'll keep an eye on.
And then I guess the big thing for me as also kind of on the biomechanics nerd anatomy of it all. And it's interesting too that the timing of this lined up because I'm in the middle and I was talking about this on a few of my videos recently. I'm in the process of doing a heart health series, debating on taking a statin based on my own health and risk factors and things like that. And family genetics, all that fun stuff. And my dog might want to get out. I'm going to keep an eye. If I have to run over and stop talking, you can feel free to.
Check it my way. I got you.
Yeah. She looks okay right now. But what I was going to say is I've been talking a lot about this heart health stuff. And so I was in the process of maybe getting a DEXA scan. And now the DEXA scan seems to be the gold standard for body fat composition from a medical perspective. You know, the InBody is another really popular version of this. In fact, I have a consultation set up with a functional medicine practitioner, and she said, "Hey, I'd like a body composition just to get a sense of where you're at." And I said, "Well, what do you prefer?" And she said, "Either DEXA scan or InBody." And I find those to be, based on my understanding of the research, to have very different levels of accuracy. And from a video 3D analysis of a camera phone, of the iPhone I use today, I would love to get your sense of what is that accuracy rate. And I won't share my numbers right now. We can go into I'm happy to share my numbers, but
Sure.
It was kind of right where I predicted it based on my understanding of what it was a 14 point. And I did my first one. I just let my belly hang out. On the second one, I sucked my belly in, and it did change it like 0.5%. I'm sure, we could talk a little more about those little things, but but yeah, again, I'd be curious. It was right about where I expected it to be. So 14.4%, which, again, it just is what it is. I'm familiar with my own body and where I've measured before. I also I worked in a fancy New York personal training studio as a physical therapist, and we did the, what's the dunking? You go underwater.
Underwater submersion or
underwater
submersion. Was it a bod pod or?
No, I've done bod pod as well many times, but no, the underwater dunking, you're supposed to like get all the oxygen out of your system, and I think a lot of the inaccuracy of that test is the ability to like expel all the oxygen, because if you have any oxygen in, it throws off your percentage of body fat. But when you get all the oxygen out and you do it correctly, I believe that's the actual gold standard. So this is your field. I've talked enough. By all means, please tell us, what is the accuracy? What's the science? And are we just doing our best? And is it more about just being able to reproduce this on your phone and not have to pay $50 for an InBody scan or $150 for a DEXA scan? Tell us what the accuracy and science says.
Yeah, well, thanks. No, and you hit on a lot of great stuff in there, because there are different options. I mean, skin fold calipers, you can find coaches that can swear they can like visually tell somebody's body fat percentage or, body composition. And there's some that are probably pretty good at that. But in any case, for most people, most of the time, the options are either expensive or clunky, or the logistics are hard, or you get a PDF to print it out and you're like, I don't know what the hell this means. So we're trying to basically solve all these things by making it accurate, reliable, easy, affordable, interpretable, translatable to action, all of this type of stuff. But it starts with that raw accuracy, because it's kind of garbage in, garbage out. And so we validate against DEXA, and DEXA is basically the gold standard that most people have access to. It's a dual energy X-ray absorptiometry, if I said that last part right. But in any case, full body X-ray. And so we have a study coming out actually that we're about to do a little press on. I don't know, when the recording of this will be posted, if it's right away or anything. But
yeah, we're live.
We're live. I know the live folks can hear, but okay, it gets posted anyways. We validate against 3 separate DEXA machines. And so one thing that's important to note when we get into accuracy, and we'll go into our numbers, but is that DEXA machines themselves have a margin of error. And if you compare a DEXA to another DEXA, you actually can get off by a couple of percent, up to a couple of percent. And so when we validated against these 3 different DEXA machines at the Pennington Biomedical Research Center at LSU, we were within the margin of error of the 3 machines themselves. And so that's pretty much unheard of for anything other than the DEXA themselves. It beats pretty much all the other types of hardware and all the other types of measurements. And what we're talking about is on average here, right? So there may be somebody who's really good at skin fold calipers out there that, does it all day, every day, and they've got their method down, et cetera. But by and large, skin fold calipers are not that accurate for most people in most situations. And so the mean absolute error is 2.6%. The median is 1.9%. That's against all 3 DEXAs, the average of those 3. And that ends up translating to another metric, which is called a Pearson correlation. And we have a 0.95% Pearson correlation on that single scan accuracy compared to DEXAs. And so just really high agreement between the ground truth and the gold standard with our scans. And then when you look at scan to scan, the next piece, like you kind of hinted at as well, how reliable is it from scan to scan if you were to do more scans over time? And we're sub 1% variability on scan to scans, which is like a 0.99 correlation from scan to scan. So reliability is just as good as you could get it. And honestly, so is the accuracy. So we're very pleased with that. It actually beats our own expectations. We weren't expecting to be better than most of the other dedicated hardware in the market. But that's exactly what we love to hear. And the fact that it's all built into your phone unlocks the other pieces you mentioned, which is that the cost to do it is so much lower. It's super convenient. It happens automatically. It's kind of like scanning a check. If somebody is like deposited a check using their phone, it automatically detects in real time like where that check is, just like we detect where your body is in real time. And you know, you can still do it wrong. I will say that if you wear a hoodie or you turn the lights
the
off.
instructions are pretty clear. They
Yeah.
say like don't wear shoes, socks, hat, anything like that. So yeah, it says to, and I mean, I did it in my underwear for whatever that's worth.
That's the most popular choice.
Yeah. But I guess that was one bit of feedback. I don't think it did say it prompted anything specific about like, don't hold your breath or don't suck your belly in. And because again, it did show, I think it did also say after the fact, I saw it said something like, make sure to have no light source behind you. You want a natural light.
Right.
And I did it in my bathroom. So I had the vanity lights behind me, and then I did turn them off for the second one. So I don't know if it contributed to the 0.5% difference or it was just sucking my belly in, but I don't know if it's worth adding a prompt of like, just stand natural and don't suck your belly in.
Yep. Yeah. And we see this even on our HRV side and other things too, is that, the measurements can be gamed if you really want to, if you're really motivated to. Pretty much any measurement tool can. But that is one of the trade-offs of convenience, is that if you really try, you can throw it off. But to your point, 0.5%, with some changes to what you did with your posture and your lighting is actually pretty close still. And so, but in any case, like with heart rate and HRV, if someone wants to measure their HRV and wants to get a good score, they can just regulate their breathing in a certain way and get a better score. So we educate people. It depends on what you're using the tool for, and it's up to you to decide to either follow directions. That's a good tip for the sucking in or not. We also probably will want to make those directions nice and concise, because people stop reading after one or two bullets.
Yeah, I thought it was very, you're doing something, you want to get as accurate as possible. Maybe
Yes.
Again, I'm not the normal subject, but I was definitely curious, and I thought it was a very user-friendly experience for sure. In the results, though, I'd love to ask you about the AG ratio. I think I'm familiar with it from my own studies over the years, being in this space and spending a lot of money understanding how the human body works. But for most people, I think that's one that we don't see very commonly in the zeitgeist and in these conversations. And so I thought that was really interesting that you have it in there. Love to hear and there's my dog going crazy. Maybe you can shed some light. I actually do want to hear the response here about the AG ratio, and I'll be right back.
Yeah. Well, while Bo is doing that, I'll give some little bit of context that he probably already knows, which AG ratio stands for android gynoid ratio. And basically the android region of the body is the trunk, and the gynoid region of the body is your lower extremities. And when you're looking at, I give him the context, Bo, stuff that you already know. And so when you look at the ratio of body fat distribution from your trunk to your extremities, this is important data. It's kind of similar to waist to hip ratio, which is another thing.
That's exactly what I was wondering why, and obviously that would take more human error or more measurement. That's why you don't have that in there.
Well, actually, waist circumference and waist to hip ratio are coming.
Okay.
But in our training data, we had more agreement with the android gynoid ratio at first. So we went that route. That's also what you would find in a DEXA as well. So just kind of providing some of the similar points there. But yeah, I mean, basically, ultimately, at the end of the day, from a practical perspective, what we're trying to get at is estimations of things like visceral adipose tissue, which is basically fat that accumulates around your midsection and your organs and things. And that is actually, when it comes to body fat percentage, if you're, really, really high, that's bad. If you're really, really low, that could be good or could be bad, depending on the context. But if you're kind of in more normal ranges, then from a health perspective, a little bit more or a little bit less doesn't really matter too much for your health from a body fat percentage standpoint. It's mostly about aesthetics or performance at that point. But what really does matter is where that fat is. And the android gynoid ratio gives us a really good approximation of fat distribution from a health perspective. And so what you don't want is to accumulate a lot of fat around your midsection, basically. And that's a pattern that is associated with all kinds of elevated risk. And so that's kind of what we're looking for there. And depending on who you are or what your goals are, we might tell people to just focus on that metric first, and not worry so much about the overall body fat percentage, because that will end up changing if you fix the android gynoid anyways.
And again, I'll say either I'm more suspicious or I'm impressed that it did not change between the two readings. Mine was the same exact score for that, the AG ratio, when I let my belly out and just was sitting there natural versus sucking my belly in.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that doesn't make intuitive sense.
Right.
One of the things that's interesting about machine learning and deep learning and all of this stuff is that so the way that we train these models is we collect tons of data of people doing DEXA scans and taking images of their body. And we have a large set of volunteers who work with us to collect that data. And we apply a lot of our own knowledge and expertise to that, and some algorithms and things, but we also use machine learning and deep learning. And when you apply these things to these large data sets, sometimes it learns things that it's hard to explain, but it also introduced biases, and I don't want to, spill all of our secrets out there, but I'm just kidding for the most part. But one of the early biases that we found is if you have a small data set, it actually changes based on what color underwear you were wearing, which should have nothing to do with anything, obviously. But this is sort of the risk of machine learning and deep learning and things like that, is it can pick up on patterns that you weren't expecting. And you need a sufficiently large data set as well as the expertise to kind of navigate that, to make sure to isolate those variables out. And but then it can do amazing things like, see through basically your attempt to game it.
Yeah, I'd be curious again if it was either very accurate or again lacked something. But the fact that it changed the body fat, so yeah, I don't want to overanalyze, 2 data points in the grand scheme of things. One other data point you guys give is the resting metabolic rate, the gold standard there, and again, I'd be curious how you would compare that, or if you guys have, I'm sure you have. It sounds like again at the same place where we had the submersion body fat measurement, we would have I forget the actual brand. Is it like PLOS or something it was something like that? But yeah, we would have people come in first thing in the morning. They would sit there. I think it was 10 minutes with the mask on, and
yep.
it would measure their oxygen going in and out and carbon dioxide, and give us what we again called the most gold standard for resting metabolic rate. And so again, mine came out as 1850, and I'm guessing that's based primarily on the only data points I put in there being my height, my weight, age, maybe, and things like that. Is that kind of what that's getting based on?
Yeah, and your body composition. Yeah.
Right.
So basically, it's looking at fat-free mass or lean mass versus fat mass, and fat-free mass being more metabolically active tissue. And what it doesn't have in there, obviously, is things like your activity level. Another thing that's interesting about doing these, so all of these kind of measurement tools lack, if you look at one point in time, they lack the context of longitudinal data, basically, until you collect that data. So I just want to take this opportunity to say that another cool thing about measuring things like body composition over time is that you can calibrate it and start to gauge what your actual basal metabolic rate is, or your resting metabolic rate. because what we might find is that maybe you have what's called NEAT, like a high degree of NEAT, non-exercise thermogenesis, basically activity-based thermogenesis. And I'm a person who has a really high NEAT, actually. And as I'm sitting here too, like I'm doing my my calves are like going. You probably could tell me something with my nervous system that's related to, but in any case,
I mean, I'm down in a lunge position, just so you know. I'm like,
okay.
I'm also fidgeting around, moving, so don't feel too bad about that.
Yeah, no, it's in some ways it's a
switching to the squat.
superpower.
Switching to the squat, guys.
Switching
Letting
to the
everybody
squat.
know. Squat.
So there's a lot of these factors that you can only really understand by tracking things over time. And so that's the other aspect of all of this, which is, and we did this with HRV as well, by making it more accessible to people start to do all kinds of things that we never even dreamed of with it. You know, most people will do a body composition analysis maybe like once or twice a year. And, you know, unless they have like a smart scale at home that kind of estimates it, but those things are just basically way off when it comes to all these metrics. And most of the changes that you see in them are extrapolating changes from your weight, which actually is not a terrible thing to do, you know, for lack of other options. But there's a lot of confounding factors, obviously. So gaining weight from fat is very different than gaining weight from muscle, which is very different than gaining weight from water. And so in any case, we just kind of unlock more of that value by making the tools easier to use and cheaper to use and letting you do it as often as you like.
Yeah. And then the integration I wanted to ask you about. So I use a Whoop, and it did give me the option or the ability to connect it, although I did not remember my Whoop password because I haven't had to enter it for a while. I did eventually figure it out. So I did connect them. Again, I've only been using it for a day. So is that something that integrates over time? Because you guys have your own method, and I was impressed by it. Wasn't, again, too far off. You had a similar kind of reading when I did my my camera based kind of heart rate tracking. I just did that to get a little bit of data point in there, but it added respiration, it added HRV score in there based on that, I assume. It wasn't super far off from the Whoop, but again, I'd be curious how that integrates over time. But in terms of the integration, is it just starting to what are you guys hoping, or what is the relationship there?
Yeah. I mean, so we've always been historically what we call device agnostic or data source agnostic, within some bounds of reason, like trying not to accept garbage. So if something is a proven tool or platform, we're happy to bring that data in and make it available to the community and pair it with the other data that you're tracking as well. And so the idea here is that when you're going on a journey of improvement, whatever it is, you start with an assessment, you form a plan, you do some stuff, you track some stuff, and then you reassess to see how it's going, if you need to course correct, change directions, etc. So we provide a lot of these assessment tools using just the camera, like the body composition analysis. All you need is your phone. You can do that initial assessment. We can add in some context, like what's your activity level, what is your sleep, you know, what are some of your health goals, what are some of your health states, you know, et cetera, and help you form a plan, whether that's nutrition or exercise or something like that. Also, we work in conjunction with practitioners and coaches. We're very passionate about powering them up. And then you have to do stuff, right? Basically, you got to go move your body or eat or sleep or recover or do all these activities. And we want to track how those activities are impacting your results. So we've integrated fully integrated food logging. You can log all your food directly in Spren, or again, playing nice, you can integrate with MyFitnessPal or whatever other app if you're already logging your food there. And the same with like Whoop and activity and sleep. You can pull that data in. And then let's say periodically, a lot of people like to do it weekly, but you could reassess weekly or every other week or once a month, whatever feels right or whatever makes sense for you and your goals, and see if it's all working. Then you can basically see, like, is my activity level plus my nutrition plus my recovery, you know, adding up to the results that I'm looking for. And if not, make adjustments or adjust your expectations.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And then you have the coach in there. Is that an AI based coach? I haven't again had a chance to play with that, but so it says set up your coach. Is it so AI based, or is it end up ultimately connecting you with a human? Or
Yeah, so that specific one that you're looking at is an AI coach, and there's some context to give there in the sense that that coach is focused a lot on two things. One is helping you understand your data. And so, because people have questions all the time, they're like, I just did the scan. What is android gynoid ratio, right? And what does my number mean if it's 1.2, right? And so you can ask the AI that. It has the context of your data and can help you understand that. And then the other thing is behavioral support. So we actually encourage people to work with a practitioner or work with a coach. If you can afford it, you should, and everyone that can afford to do that should do it, because that's how you're going to get the best results. But even if you are working with a practitioner or a coach, you're probably only able to access them for, a small window each week at a maximum. And so there's all these things that come up in life as you're trying to eat multiple times a day, or sleep every day, or deal with stress, or your significant other, isn't seeing eye to eye with your new fitness goals, or whatever it is, that you can't always just call your practitioner or your coach immediately on the phone and say, like, what do I do? This is happening. I'm at the grocery store and I'm trying to find enough protein. Like, is it this or this? And you can actually just ask the AI that, and it has the context of your goals and your data and your body scans and all that stuff. And it can help you figure those situations out. So it's not a replacement for a practitioner or a coach. We try to build as much intelligence and guardrails and expertise into it as we can. And we actually partner with practitioners and coaches to do that. So it could be like a Dr. Bo AI that helps you and your audience with all that, like 24/7 behavioral support that is really difficult to serve as a practitioner, and also really important for the journey.
yeah, and then I also wanted to ask you about the blood lab you have on here. I see you guys kind of have your own. It looks like whatever you want to call it, mix of tests, and your own kit you can send out for 17 blood biomarkers.
Yep. Yeah. So, basically, for those looking, it looks like this. It comes in the mail. And so this is our first foray into blood biomarkers. And I think there's a lot more that we can do with this, but we're pretty excited about what we can already do too. These 17 markers were basically handpicked to be sort of some of the most critical markers of inflammation, metabolic health, hormonal health, and just kind of getting you that really good baseline picture of what your status is. And then that rolls up into these categories. So you have reference ranges, like all normal blood labs, basically. Our reference ranges tend to be like on the conservative end, because I know there's like sort of varying, ironically, there's varying opinions upon reference ranges. But in any case, if you're looking at vitamin D, for example, you'll be able to test that by pricking your finger at home, dropping a few drops of blood into a card that is sent to a CLIA certified lab. We have lab partners that process all of that. And then the results upload into your Spren app automatically, and you see it there. And so you get the raw reference ranges plus sort of a roll up of how that contributes to your metabolic health or your inflammatory condition, et cetera. And then just gives you some more complete picture.
It just gives me all the Elizabeth Holmes vibes.
Well, so it's interesting you say that. A lot of the stuff that we develop is sort of kind of crazy. Like if you take a step back, you mentioned the tricorder from Star Trek, where it's like you're waving a magic wand, you do body composition just using your phone, and a DEXA machine costs like $100,000. And so it's kind of crazy. And the blood labs that we do are specifically only the ones that can be delivered through that method. And so we can't do all of them right through that method. And that's part of our opportunity for expansion over time, is partnering more with phlebotomists and lab partners that can do deeper blood draws for some more of those markers.
Yeah, super interested. You might know in the industry, it was called Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. Do you know that company at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. Reed Davis, I think, is the main dude. I got certified with them a long time ago. I want to say that was like 2010, 11, something like that, maybe 2012. Feels like a long time ago. I guess it's not that many years ago, but yeah, they would do at-home collection. They had salivary, they had poop, they had pee samples you would do at home, and they were certainly early on in that space, I think. And so it's really interesting to hear and see where that goes. And again, there was I always joke about that company because it's called Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. They were very clear. We do not talk about nutrition. We are not diagnosing anybody. Change your name. Change your name. But yeah, all jokes aside about that.
Not functional. Just kidding.
I don't know if they maybe said they were functional. I don't know. But one thing, again, I mentioned my own journey with cholesterol right now and debating on taking a statin. I noticed in the blood markers, you don't actually have, again, I'm geeking out and I'm enjoying playing with the stuff here. But yeah, since you're the guy, is there a way you'd be able to integrate like data points like cholesterol, your blood work, the rest of things? Is that something currently there or something you guys are thinking about in the future?
Yep. Yeah. So the basic lipids are in there. So I'm just pulling that up. What we would have is HDL, LDL, triglycerides, ApoB to ApoA1 ratio, and total cholesterol to HDL ratio.
Where would I input that? Because I'm looking at blood biomarkers.
Yep. It will be, so I'm not exactly sure which screen you're looking at, but if you're, is it the order screen? Oh yeah. So scroll down. There's
nothing lower. It just has the learn more. This is the under the blood labs. That's why I was wondering.
Oh, okay. What happens if you click that learn more?
Oh, it just tells me about the sample report, or I can order the at-home test.
I gotcha.
That's all that gives me option for. That's why I was wondering if there's no place that looks like to put that. There's a vitals tab.
Oh, to enter it? Are you talking about to enter it?
Yeah, to enter my own.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant when you were ordering your test. Yeah. So.
Oh, so your 17 metrics is also, or blood biomarkers is also picking those up?
Yes.
Okay, I got you.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. Misunderstood you there.
All good.
Yes, it's included. And also to your point, over time, we are going to add functionality where if you've already done blood panels, et cetera, you can pull those in either automatically or manually. Because again, we're just trying to provide options for people. And, we kind of think options give you the best. It forces us to be the top of our game as well, because a lot of ecosystems close off and become a black box. And, that's a way of competing. But another way is to just have the best product. And maybe someday I'll eat my words on that, but it's a philosophical stance that we have for now.
Yeah, I mean, again, my one thought is you kind of have the 17 markers a little more generic, which I understand from your perspective probably why that is. Oh, I guess you do go more in depth. CRP, vitamin D. Is the D the OH25 marker?
Yes.
Gotcha. So yeah, these are all like gold standard, and I'm just thinking like how much it would cost to do all 17 of these separately. Again, even ApoB and cholesterol and things like that. And you guys are charging like $135 if you're doing it quarterly, which sounds like a huge deal, assuming again we can trust the numbers. Which if you're doing it 4 times a year, I mean, again, it's the same as doing the assessment there. So yeah, I guess that same question of how accurate could I trust if I'm doing that with the finger prick compared to going into a lab and actually doing it for like ApoB and lipids and again, vitamin D even.
Yeah. So we partner with the third-party lab for processing these, that they process markers from all kinds of different, providers and inputs and things. So we're not the ones processing the blood ourselves, and they're a CLIA certified lab. They're CAP accredited. They basically have gone through all of the regulatory, hurdles to process these specific markers in this way. Comparable to going to a Quest or LabCorp or something like that.
Again, like I'm a little blown away by how cheap that is.
I will admit that we actually don't make much money ourselves off of that, because again, we're trying to lower the barriers for people to get access to this stuff. And so Yeah, basically, those were, hand-picked markers so that we could combine them all into one test and make that as cheap as possible while giving people the most comprehensive view as possible. Like, there's trade-offs though. Like if you do 200, a panel that has 200 markers or something like that, there may be something in there that you learn. But if you're trying to get just sort of like that base picture of what your situation is, this should cover as almost everything. And then you could drill in from there, obviously. And so, yeah, if you were to order these each individually, oftentimes they're like $30 to $40 per marker, and sometimes a lot more.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's pretty good value.
Yeah. Again, I didn't quite connect that. Like when you even mentioned ApoB, I think ApoB can be close to $100 if I just went into a lab right now and said, hey, can I just get this done? Versus I know it's a fun little fact for the consumer, especially men trying to get that marker. If they're fans of Peter Attia, is usually the folks that actually know to get that test. But if you get it, there's some labs that during Men's Health Month, which I think is February or March. I think it's March. I think that if you do it during Men's Health Month, a lot of like labs will run a promo that's only $49 to do that test. But the point is $135 for 17 markers. If you're comparing against, seems like a really good deal. So I'm actually pretty excited to take advantage of that and get more data, because that seems like a very low hanging fruit there for that.
Awesome. Yeah. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, it's connecting all of this data back to action. And so when we talk to our partners, we partner with health clubs and providers and coaches and all sorts of stuff. And we tell them, like, we're very proud of our technology, but in the pie of all the things that you need to actually improve outcomes when it comes to health and fitness and well-being, the data is just this tiny slice of the pie. And it's very important slice. And I call it the bookends to every chapter in the journey. You start with an assessment, you do some things, you reassess, and but you still have to do the things. And so that's kind of, I'm always passionate about saying that. So one, I believe it. And two is we're not kind of this out of touch organization that's like, you've got to do all of our assessments and do all of our measurements and it's going to solve all your problems. It can help you solve all of your problems for sure. But the action is where it happens.
Yeah, I'll just be very transparent that I was fairly skeptical. Generally, traditionally, when people talked about these like 3D body fat scans, I was pretty skeptical. And again, the integration, talking to you here, has really got me to buy in significantly. And again, I'm excited to test out the biomarkers there. That that's a big piece of that puzzle I do value significantly. And assuming you're not just lying through your teeth right now, which I would assume you're not. I'm sure you got the science to back it up. I'm very excited.
My name is actually Steve. No, yeah. Just kidding.
Steve Moore. But yeah, so I'm excited, Jason. Really, again, I could geek out a lot longer. I do have a client in my garage that I will be personal training in about 6 minutes, so I'm gonna pop off. But before we go, appreciate you being here. I got at least 1% better. I'm excited to again test this out. Maybe we can have a follow-up after I get my at least first or even second. I'm probably going to do the quarterly, just based on cost analysis and how valuable that information can be if again, folks are able to understand that, synthesize it, and then do something with it, like we're talking about, actionable steps. So anywhere folks can find you, just go spren.com.
Yep. Spren, you can find in the App Store as well. I'm not super active on social media, but you can ping me there if you want, or give us a shout out. But yep, Spren, and in general, we're very responsive. One of the things that, other than technology, that we do well, I think, is listen. And so if people have ideas or they want to partner or want to share some feedback, we're all ears on that stuff, and we really do appreciate it.
I'll tell you, Andrew, I think he said it on the podcast if you go and listen to it, but he was hoping you guys could somehow integrate. I forgot the acronym he used, that you could have your system available so they could integrate your stuff and you could integrate their stuff, but for a movement screen. But I'd be curious to talk to you about my movement screen and seeing if we can somehow integrate that as well. But I do a 21-point movement check-in, and again, it's pretty scalable. I think it's pretty scalable. I don't know. We could talk, but I'm excited.
Yeah, let's chat.
Yeah, man. So we'll sign off. And again, anywhere else folks can check you out?
All good.
All
Spren.com.
good. All
Thanks,
right,
everybody.
guys, get 1% better.